Snap! Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of What They Don't Tell You. I'm your host, Jacob, along with your other host.
Aiden, and we're here to bring you our perspective on news, facts, culture, and what we believe to be true about them.
Alright guys, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the SNAP benefits or the food stamps that have been cut off as of November 1st, which is yesterday when recording this. So Aiden, do you want to get into this for us and give us your thoughts?
Yeah, so obviously SNAP benefits affect about, did we say 52 million Americans? Big statistic, obviously, because the population's about 341.9 million or something around that number. So, not a huge percent of the population, but when you look at it as just straight up 42 million people are on these benefits, that's actually crazy. Now, I want to get into a little bit of why I do and don't like this program. Obviously, I think as being a fairly conservative and liberally minded individual where I'm thinking critically through all of these things, I don't particularly like the idea of a government-run social program of benefits to people that might kind of disinvite people from society to actually go out and help these people on their own. I think the church obviously should be responsible for helping a lot of these people. It's not that I'm like, oh, I just want to starve people. That's not my point at all. I just think that there's an idealized version of what I would like to happen. I think it's sad to see that that's fallen through, and we've seen a socialist program take the place of what I believe the moral standard of the populace should be at. So obviously very sad. Also, there's other things that tie into this. We can talk about taxes, for example. Our income tax is very high. A lot of taxes right now are very high, especially if you are in one of the states that sees a more socialist or leftist-leaning state at the current moment. You're going to see higher tax rates. Hence why you see people leaving places like California and a lot of people moving to places like Tennessee where the tax rates are a little bit lower. What I don't like about that, though, is because then it takes away our ability to actually redistribute money to people that do need it of our own free will, which, again, should be part in capitalism. We do have to have a moral set of values, and if we have those moral values, then we should want to go out and help the people that actually do need it. So it's sad to see that the government has had to step in place of what the people should be willing to do. Now, that being said, Jacob, if you could just give us some numbers on what all is going on here within the government. I know that there's a lot of things with just the government shutdown, with how many people are losing these benefits, with how all of this is going to work. So you just want to kind of give us a rundown on some statistics here.
Yeah, I'll do that. So, as you said, we had around 49 million, which is about 5.7% of U.S. Population that takes home SNAP benefits. Now, a lot of these SNAP benefits we've seen have been used for certain foods that aren't necessarily what we would call healthy foods. We see the people with the Dorito bags and the candies buying these, and I personally don't agree with that. And so who qualifies for the SNAP benefits versus what I want to talk about first?
Sure.
So we usually talk about, so for a household of 4, which is around the average, I'd say, as of right now, a $41,000 annual income or lower is what qualifies for a household of 4. A household of 3, which would be a $34,000 annual income. For a household of 2 is 27, and then a household of 1, which is $20,000. So we see that this is about $292 a month that these families or these individuals are receiving. And I think that I'm going to bring up a question for you, Aiden. What do you think? So you said how you kind of felt about the government involved in this. Do we think that the church should be more involved, and how would they do this rather than the government giving these out?
Well, first of all, as I said, it's a lot of tie-ins here. There's a lot of ends that have to be met to fully understand this entire problem. Here's the thing. It is very easy for me to say, oh, I don't like SNAP benefits. I don't know people on them. I'm blessed enough not to have to be on them with the family situation I'm in. Obviously, that's a blessing. So I'm not trying to discount people that really are disabled, that really are hurt, that really can't work. I just think my personal belief is that it should be society's responsibility, and they should be enabled to do that by having more of their money, quite honestly. So the church's role, I believe the church should absolutely play a huge role. There's a lot of donations to the church. The church obviously functions almost strictly on the people's putting money into the church and the church income. I think that it would be wise of us to start directing our attention to the communities around us. I love to see when churches donate overseas when they do that, but I see that a lot more recently, but I don't see necessarily as much pouring into community. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying there's churches that aren't very invested in it. I really appreciate my church. I think they are fairly invested in our community and probably go much further than even I understand to do that. In fact, They serve a free meal every week, actually, for anyone who comes in, and that's anyone. You don't have to be anything. They just do that every week as out of that generosity. Obviously, I think that there's a lot that goes into that. I'm pretty sure they are pretty involved in our community here, so I feel pretty good about that. But I think that it would mean, I think it would mean taking tithing more seriously. But again, if it comes back a little bit to the taxation and what government has enabled and not enabled us to do, I would say that I don't like high taxation, right? The issue, and it goes all the way back to the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists. When we came to this compromise, and as Brutus, who we believe to be Robert Yates, I believe might have been the New York representative, one of the representatives from New York, wrote as under the pseudonym Brutus, obviously, because Brutus killed Julius Caesar in defense of the Republic. So it's kind of a mock thing of defending a republic or a consolidation of power with the people, so spread out, actually, rather than the government. And so when it goes back to that, and what he specifically says is there's nothing in the Constitution that regulates the legislature on taxing us. And it's only actually become more free for them to do that. So over time, we have a lot of taxation, and we have higher and higher rates depending on the state, which is also very unfortunate, and then higher rates for the federal government too. So we're paying in a lot of money to both of these entities, and then we take home, obviously not as much as we'd like to. I'm not saying there isn't room for taxation. The government should be able to fund what it needs to do, but I think it's ridiculous the amount of money that we do give them and some of the things that could be cut. That we just don't need. And then we would be enabled to spend more with the church, with our community, with our families and friends. It would just be a lot more. Obviously, inflation also plays a role. These people can't buy as much because when they go to buy this food, the dollar is so inflated that it's not worth as much anymore. So they go and they spend it, and their dollar just doesn't go as far. And so that's also an issue, right? Healthy foods do cost more, so it might be tempting to get fatter, more fattening foods because they're cheap. But then we see this severe obesity rates, and our taxpayer dollars going to people that aren't really using it for its intended purpose or its intended spirit of the issue. And so I do see a lot of issues with SNAP benefits and with how it's playing out in society, and I think it could be done a lot better. But I appreciate the question, Jacob. I thought that was good.
Yeah, so this, again, I think I agree with a lot of what you said there. The big thing is the taxing, and again, like taxes will range from state to state, from county to county, and so do the SNAP benefits. So it's not going to be exactly the same in every state and every county because, again, the dollar doesn't value in certain places as much as it would in other places. And so I think I agree that it's like we see a lot of these cheap, snacky and fatty, like commercialized foods that these commercials are having, these Cheetos, these pops, these sodas, these diets. And I think that because there's so much inflation, so many, like, food costs way too much nowadays, that these people are drawn to this cheaper food. Oh, I could get 250 bags of Cheetos for my $250 compared to 5 batches of broccoli. You know what I mean? So it's like, where's the line? Don't get me wrong. We all love a good Cheetos, and whenever we can have it, we'll splurge. But it's not your lunch, breakfast, and dinner every day.
Right, absolutely.
And I want to bring up one more question, kind of is going off of this idea that we're talking about. So when you see somebody on the side of the road, right? And I hate this is an awkward topic, but it's still something I would like to cover. It's like, when they're saying anything helps, God bless, please, and like some of those guys are legit, but what do you feel comfortable giving, and how do you feel comfortable giving it in these situations?
Yeah, so I'm sure you're of a very similar mind to me. I get nervous giving it to someone on the side of the road because you don't know where they're going to go spend it, right? Typically, people that are homeless or have those signs, it's usually because of a mental illness underlying or an addiction, right? And so it's when you've got that kind of split, and I'm not saying that's everyone, but that is a lot of people that are homeless anyway. That makes me nervous. I'd much prefer to gift card. I'll get you food. I do want to see where you're at, right? It's good to have those conversations because, again, part of that societal impact over government impact is that government's going to keep giving it to them, like these SNAP benefits to them, but it's not teaching them to do it themselves, right? It's not saying, hey, promoting, and we can get into these other aspects of the SNAP benefits in a minute, but it's not promoting do it yourself, and it's not trying to change that person to be the best of their ability. Because even someone with a mental illness, depending on how bad it is or how, just absolutely crippling it is, still can work and still has a best version of their life. Now, it might not look like the billionaire best version of life because they might not simply be capable of that, but it doesn't mean they can't have a fulfilling and good life where they can provide for their families and themselves. And so I think think that that's a lot of what this promotes and what society, what I would hope it would do, because again, I'm not blaming necessarily the government here, actually. I think that they stepped in because they saw that society wasn't doing that and we need that. But I am saying that I'm not what's nice about society and about being able to have those opportunities is you can go in and actually change that person's life for the better. And so that they don't have to keep relying on you or anyone else to be able to satisfy themselves, and that they can be a fully individual mind, actually. Because again, that's another issue I do want to bring up, and I have a question for you, Jacob, right here to throw a question back at you.
All
Because
right.
I am not for, and I'm sure you have the same mind, just giving money. Because I don't know where that money's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
We have some kind of institution where, oh, we know where they're at. I don't like giving money right away to people on the side of the road unless I were to know them. It'd be more like, hey, can I get you food? Like, what do you need? I can buy, do you need groceries for the week? Do you need, heck, do you need me to run through Culver's real quick?
Right.
I don't like, what do you need in this present moment? I'm hesitant to initially give money anyway. I think the church can be much more cognizant of who actually needs that money. And as an institution, we can decide. And as a people, we can decide, okay, who needs it. But the question I have for you, Jacob, is do you think that these SNAP benefits influence the way people vote? Because I am a little bit of that mind, because now let's keep in mind, Republicans probably aren't always fully for SNAP benefits depending on who's using them, right? We can see that there's some fraudulent activity over who's using them and some immoral activity. And so do you think that SNAP benefits also might not be great just because they influence the way people vote? People might be more willing to vote a certain way because the government is saying, we'll keep giving you this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can 100% influences voting. I think it influences the way people see certain positions in the government. What you're saying about these SNAP benefits? Because if I'm like, again, now there's two different sides to who takes these SNAP benefits. I want to get into that first before I answer this. There's the one where there's a mental illness, there's a sick, there's a disabled, a veteran, a family that just can't. There's something that's not that, and we can evaluate if there's something that we are like, okay, I don't think that's right. Or there's the people that are like, I don't want to work, I don't feel like working. Yeah. The government gives me free money to go get free Cheetos, you know what I mean? So it's like, there's two different sides. Now, on the side of both sides, I think, see this as I am paycheck to paycheck, barely making $40,000 a year for my 5 kids. And Trump might have said, I might try and take this away to cut costs. Now, from a person that lives in this country that knows that we need to get out of debt, okay, that's good. But from somebody that's from paycheck to paycheck, barely surviving, it's like, I don't know how I feel about that, and that can influence in certain ways. And then there's also the other side where it's like, he's stealing my free money, get him out of here. So it's like, whenever we saw that the Biden administration was pushing all of this, where they're just like, here, hand out. They were doing one of these with the stamps, yeah. You know what I mean? And so it's like, where's the line that we have to draw to where it's like, okay, you need to realize that he's doing it for a good reason, but also for the people that need it.
Right.
Look into going to a church, look into going to a food pantry. There's a lot of local source things that can help.
And this is not me being like, I went and served some, like, but I have actually gone. We have one just in our town and helped them stock the shelves, and it's really cool to see what they're able to do for a lot of people here. Things are free. I think there's a certain amount you can take per day or week or whatever, but they do clothes for very, very cheap for clothes, and then food, obviously, and they've gotten it from a donor that pours money into this, but I love it, right? That's a society way. That's a way to be like, hey, we're moral. We have a moral standard where we believe that it is our obligation to take care of people who need it, to take care of the widows, to take care of the people that, and then they go pour their money in, and then look, we have all these people who are provided with food who might still be working very hard, because again, I'm not dissing like that people need it, and that people need, sometimes just can't keep up, because I mean, there's people that I know, my mom knows through like that, their work, that single mothers that are trying to provide for all these kids and simply don't have the money. So I'm not dissing the idea of SNAP benefits, and I know I don't want it to come across that way. I think that my issue with it is that it consolidates power with the government, which I'm never going to like as a capitalist free market idealist. But I think I have an ideal view of how things should always be. Ideally, my view is how it would be, but that doesn't mean that's the reality. And the government did step in and say, okay, if the people aren't going to act morally and try to do this the right way, and partially it is their fault too with taxes, but if they're not going to do this, then we do have to provide for them some way. Unfortunately, that does consolidate power with them. So it's sad to see, right? We don't want to have to see that. that people aren't always willing to take care of other people, and part of it's not anyone's specific fault either. But I hope that mainly I get upset when we do see the fakes, right? Because we're talking about the fakes. We're talking about the people that don't need it, that just don't want to work. And that should enrage everybody. Like, there should be at least a little bit stricter of a process to be like, okay, what do you need? And then if we get rid, let's say, we don't know how many people are faking it, right? Like, let's say, and half might be a large number. I don't know. I would hope that half weren't faking it. And maybe I kind of doubt that they are, but let's just say for the sake of the argument that half are faking it. If we say half of you are capable, able-bodied people that don't have dependents, just like that don't need anyone to provide for, right? Then okay, why aren't you working? Oh, work. Like, that's the most important thing. And then if we get rid of half, how much more money can we give then to the people that, I'm not saying I like SNAP benefits anyway, but like, let's say that, it's not like we're gonna get rid of them, nor do I think necessarily we should because of the state of our society right now. But let's say that then, okay, now we have all this money, now we give it to the people that actually need it. There's gonna be a lot more to go around, right? And that might mean more for healthier foods, more for all that. Again, there's so many issues playing into this one issue, and I think that goes for a lot of issues too. I'd encourage you guys to look, and when you see a single issue, look for all the other factors, because there's about a million of them. Now, that doesn't mean that it justifies certain situations, but it does mean that there's more to the story, and you need to fully debunk it and understand all the angles before you make one singular judgment statement, and that's part of the critical thinking kind of theory that we should have. But that does mean you can still come to a definitive, but it does mean you should look into it more. So yeah, this was very interesting, Jacob. I appreciate the insights.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else I really want to hit on just for this episode. There's a lot more we can get into, and we for sure will in the future. Just kind of hitting on the topic because of what's happening right now, what people are saying, and what Trump has said, taking them away on November 1st, which was yesterday. Aiden, any other thoughts before we end the video?
Not too many. Obviously, this is a result of the government shutdown, so we'll have to see what happens, and we might keep you updated on the government shutdown as well in the future. Stay tuned.
Yeah, guys, peace out, and we will see you in the next video.